What's up guys, my name is Liam and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Logitech G Pro Superlight 2. Since this has launched, there's been a lot of controversy around it and I have been getting requests to share my thoughts and opinions on it. So, is this going to be the perfect gaming mouse for you? Let's check it out. Alright guys, and before we get started today, I did want to let you know I did actually purchase this with my own money. However, whether I purchase it or it's sent out to me, that's never going to change the outcome on my videos. Everything you'll be hearing today will be my own thoughts and my own opinions. So I figured I'd kind of jump past the unboxing and everything like that since it's been done several times. This is probably the most popular gaming mouse out there on the market and it will be covered several times. The build quality on these is just, honestly, it's kind of all over the place. People are getting clicks that are lighter, people are getting clicks that are heavier, and the side buttons on some are different. The scroll wheel seems a little different on some, so there's kind of a lot of variance going on in the market right now. So I do want you to keep that in mind while you're watching this. One of the first things that I did want to address, I've seen a lot of people talking really bad about the skates, and if you watch my channel and know my videos, I deal with mice of all spectrum, really cheap, so I've dealt with all types of skates, and I really thought people were over exaggerating with these, but the reality is when I got this out of the box, I threw it on a control pad and they do feel really slow. But absolutely one of the first things that I'm looking to do is to upgrade these to the Tiger Eye skates when they become available. When it comes to the coating on the mouse, I feel like they absolutely killed it. It feels incredible, it's nice and grippy, and this is absolutely one of my top coatings out there. I have seen reports, however, of people that have been using this mouse for just 1 to 2 weeks and the coating is already starting to wear off on the surface. So just something to keep in mind. That's absolutely something that I'm going to be looking out for as I begin to use this more and more. Like I mentioned, there's been a lot of variance on these buttons and my experiences with the switches on my copy. I don't feel like mouse button 1 and 2 is any heavier than the first copy. They're about the same weight. The difference is, however, it's actually in the actuation of the switch itself. I do feel like, especially on my unit, that they're incredibly clicky, and overall it does give you a heavier experience while you're using mouse buttons 1 and 2. I really feel like these switches can be great if the actuation point on the switch wasn't so aggressive. So if there was a way that they can just make these less clicky, then I really feel like they would be pretty much ideal for the most part. The buttons have always been kind of looser on the Logitech G Pro Superlight, even from the first copy. And you know, some people do prefer it that way. When you make them a bit looser and not as tight, it can make the clicks feel like they're a little bit lighter. Me personally, I like them a little bit tighter. It has made the clicks overall just feel a little bit spongier. And again, it's like I said, it could be due to the fact just the weight of the actual activation point or actuation point on that switch itself. And we'll do a quality check here shortly, but it's basically the same thing on mouse button 1 and mouse button 2. There's quite a bit of play on the Endgame Gear OP1WE. The actuation point, it is actually really clicky. I do feel like the clickiness of the G Pro Superlight, I do feel like it's a little bit more clicky, but I would say that the OP1WE, the switches overall, they just feel just slightly a bit heavier than on the Logitech G Pro Superlight. I don't think that the difference is that much greater of a difference. And the one cool thing about the OP1WE, I'm actually going to do another video on this in the future. They are offering lighter switches available for this, or hot swap switches. And there's actually a way on the shell itself to where you can actually loosen the tension on the switches to make them feel a little bit lighter as well. So I'll play around with that in the future. But out of the gate, that's kind of what you're looking at. They feel pretty identical to me for the most part, other than the fact that the Logitech G Pro Superlight, it just has a little bit more movement there on the buttons itself. And with the Endgame gear, it's just incredibly solid, very firm, and there's almost no pre-travel or post-travel. Another example I'd like to use out there is on any of these magnesium style mice. Usually the clicks are a bit heavier on here, and I do feel like mouse button 1 on the Ponage, it does feel a little bit heavier on the actual, just the movement of the button itself, whereas on the G Pro it does feel lighter. But where the difference lies is the button that is inside on the Ponage mouse, it doesn't have as heavy of an actual click. So even though these clicks are heavy on it, if you were to spam really quickly, I do feel like it is a little bit easier to spam these clicks for me personally than it is on the Logitech G Pro Superlight 2. And that, again, that's just because these clicks are just really thunky. And again, it just has way too aggressive of a notch on the actual switch itself. But overall, my honest preference is, as I was gaming with this more, I did kind of get used to it and forgot about it. But I'm sure that if you use this for a long enough time, I'm sure it'd be fine. And another good thing is that there is no mouse out there that has as many accessories or is as known out there in the community. So I'm pretty sure that if the switches are a major deal breaker for you, that I can almost guarantee you that there will be mods for those coming out in the future. When it comes to the actual scroll wheel itself, when I did get this out of the box, the scroll wheel was silent and didn't make any noise. and it has kind of gotten a little bit louder, and it has gotten closer to the original scroll wheel from the first G Pro Superlight, and I've been testing them side by side next to each other. I do still feel like the steps are a little bit more defined on the Logitech G Pro Superlight version 1. And for me personally, it's not too bad. I wouldn't say it's the best scroll wheel that I use, but with that being said, it hasn't been so bad either. One thing, however, that is really different on my scroll wheel is the center button. There's like almost no movement when you actually click on the scroll wheel button. And it was kind of the same way on the version 1, but I do feel like I did get a little bit more movement on the original G Pro Superlight. But yeah, on the G Pro Superlight 2, when you do activate the middle button, it's almost like it just activates and it doesn't even press down. And when I say that, I'm not trying to say like I accidentally activate or anything like that. You do have to push on it pretty hard to activate it. So there's been no accidental activations. It's just that there's not very much movement in it. And then coming over the side buttons, as I mentioned, there's a bunch of different reports going out there. People are saying that they fixed the side buttons. People are saying that the side buttons feel the exact same. And on my copy, they feel the exact same as the original G Pro Superlight. They do feel really loose, really spongy. They do have a lot of pre-travel. And then after you activate the switch, they do have a bit of post-travel, not a whole lot of post-travel. And they do stick back in the shell. You do hit a wall back there, and there's not a whole lot of wobble on them once you do actually activate them down. So again, just a little bit spongy. They do kind of feel more similar to some of the cheaper other types of spongier side button mice that I've been testing lately, but nothing too terrible. And then when it comes to the overall shell integrity, you can slightly push in the side buttons here if you were to push really hard, but I never grip my mouse that hard, and it was never an issue for me that I noticed while I was using it in game. So let's go and drop a click sound and quality check on the G Pro Superlight 2. When the original G Pro Superlight came out, it really was revolutionary. Most people were maining the Razer Viper Ultimate, and that was, I don't remember exactly, but around 70, 75 grams, something like that. But when this came out, this was one of the first lightweight offerings, and not only was it lightweight, but the balance on it really was next level, and it was incredible. And one of my favorite things about the original G Pro Superlight, like I said, even with grips on or whatever, the front to back balance on my copy was perfect. And even on the left to right balance, it is perfect as well. Even before I had grips on it, on my scale, it is coming in at approximately 59.1 grams. So not a whole lot lighter. I can throw the original G Pro on here, even though it's got the grips on it, 63 grams. And the one thing that was kind of a letdown for me personally is the overall balance on my new copy. I know that they redid the internals. The front to back balance actually feels really good and it feels decent on here. But the one thing that really surprised me is that the left to right balance is actually off on the Superlight 2, where, like I said, on the first version, it was nearly perfect for me. So that was one thing that was kind of shocking to me. And I did notice that I actually did leave the puck in there. So with the weight, without the puck, actually does drop it down quite a bit more, drops it down to 57.6 grams. But again, like I said, that left to right balance on here, it's just pretty off on my copy. I've actually been getting a lot of people reaching out to me and asking me to talk about the performance of using this, especially with the 2K. And I do want to say that Logitech has always had incredible sensor performance. Even the original G Pro Superlight, to this day, it still feels incredible in my opinion. And I still love using it. Even though I am a huge fan of the higher polling rates, I do prefer the 4K, even the 8K if it was possible. As long as you don't have a defective product and you do have your system configured perfectly to where these these are running like they should be in game. I did do several tests side by side. I actually used the Lamzu mouse, I used G-Wolves, a bunch of different mice out there. I did polling rate comparisons with the actual 2K performance. The performance on both of them felt incredible in game. So to sum it up briefly, just because I get asked these questions all the time, can I tell a difference between 1K and 2K polling rate? Yes, I can. It's not the major, oh my gosh, difference that everybody thinks it's going to be, but if you were to game on a mouse for a while, get used to it, become really comfortable with it, and get a real good solid feeling for it, and then you're to switch back, absolutely I can notice a difference. I do notice a difference from 1K to 2K, 2K to 4K, and even 4K to 8K. And even though the performance of these mice could possibly be off by a couple of 0.1, 2, 3 milliseconds, I don't really feel like in game that anybody can really notice the difference between them, and I myself certainly cannot. And since the shape on the G Pro Superlight 2 hasn't changed compared to the first one, I'm obviously not going to go into very much detail talking about the shape, but I have been getting requests out there to compare it to other offerings on the market. So starting out, comparing it to the VGN Dragonfly F1. When putting these mice together as far as shape goes, I do feel like on the bottom profile that the Logitech G Pro Superlight is a bit flatter, and it is more narrow here in the rear of the mouse, to where, as you can see, it does have more aggressive curves on the VGN Dragonfly, flaring out more aggressively. And then coming over here at the top, as you can see, it's a little bit flatter on top of the VGN Dragonfly, so it tapers a little bit less aggressively over to the side. So at the very top of the mouse, it does feel just a little bit wider compared to the Superlight. Another difference between these two shapes I thought I'd point out is on mouse button 1 and 2 on the VGN Dragonfly, it does actually have far much more aggressive comfort grooves in the switches themselves. It doesn't necessarily bother me, but I've seen people having issues with it. And as you can see here, they're just really a lot more rounded and a flatter feeling type of a mouse button 1 and 2 on the G Pro Superlight. And then finally, looking at these two from the sides, you can see the Superlight does feel like a little bit of a bigger mouse in the hands, and it does have a bit more of a pronounced hump there in the middle. All right, next up, when comparing it to the Dareu A950 Pro, both of these mice actually have some pretty common similarities, especially when it comes down to the side profile. Both of these mice have a really flat profile on the sides. When you put them together, they are almost evenly as wide as one another. And one of the major similarities that these two have is on the very rear. I feel like the rear of the Superlight and the rear of the A950 Pro, it is a little bit more narrow than other mice in the same size. And when it comes to the flaring on the back of the mouse, it doesn't have very much flaring over here for thumb support in the rear. And again, it just kind of gives you that overall flatter style feeling on the sides. Coming over to the top profile on the mice, I do feel like it kind of does drop off less aggressively to the sides from the middle point over here on the A950 Pro, and at the top of the mouse it does feel a little bit wider in the hands. They both have that really slow taper from the top middle hump out to the rear, but as you can see here, the Superlight kind of has that less aggressive, almost kind of like a secondary hump right here, to where on the A950 Pro it does fall off and feel a bit flatter in the rear, something more similar and comparable to the feeling of the Razer Viper V2 Pro. All right, and lastly, comparing it to the Lamzu Thorn. The actual overall size and scale of these two are not that far apart from another, but the shapes on them are obviously pretty different, whereas the Lamzu Thorn is more of an ergo style shape. And as you can see here, one of the major differences is it's much wider here on the sides and the rear, and where the Logitech G Pro Superlight is just much flatter, this does have way more aggressive curvature on the side. Coming over to the rear, since the Thorn is an ergo style, it does stand up taller over here on the left side of the mouse, flaring down way more aggressively to the right side, and where the Logitech G Pro Superlight is obviously just more of a ambi style feeling mouse. On the Thorn, it does have a much more aggressive taper from the top middle of the mouse off to the rear, to where the Superlight has a much less aggressive and slower taper. So the Superlight does kind of fill up your hands and feel a little bit longer, to where the Lamzu Thorn, even though I would say that it's a little bit wider, a little bit taller, it does feel shorter in the hands than the Superlight. Alright guys, so that wraps things up on the Logitech G Pro Superlight 2, and in my honest opinion, this mouse feels way more similar to the original version than it does feel like something new, different, or refreshing. I feel like if you have owned a G Pro Superlight, the first edition in the past, then you kind of know exactly what to expect when you're going to be getting this. Even after watching all the reviews and seeing what people had to say, I honestly felt like it was going to feel a lot different than it actually does, but overall it really feels similar to me. But who knows what the future has to hold. I kind of feel like people had the same experience when the original Razer Viper V2 Pro had launched. I kind of feel like it was a little underwhelming for some people, and then down the line obviously Razer did drop the 4K dongle, so who knows, that could possibly be in store here for the G Pro Superlight 2. Alright guys, so if you have any questions or feel like I left anything out, please let me know down in the comments below. Aside from that, if you've enjoyed watching this video and are interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, please drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel. I've left affiliate links down in the description below if you're interested in picking up any of these mice and supporting the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.